Samrat Baul, Director of Conversational AI Design at Oracle. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so for the uninitiated, tell us about Oracle. I've never heard of this company. Tell us about Oracle, and more specifically, tell us about what you are doing at Oracle.
I think Oracle is an exciting space right now. We are probably the most prime time ready company out there for AI adoption with our OCI infrastructure, autonomous databases, and our applications that are AI ready right now. It's a hot space, it's a hot company, and I would say I work for the design org, and we are transforming the user experience, and we are trying to bring AI-based efficiency gains into all of our applications right now. That's what we are doing. We're transforming the user experience to bring AI to the forefront. And I'm part of the design system org to make these affordances available at scale. So that's what we are trying to do.
User experience, I will boldly claim, is one of the most underrated aspects of AI implementation and development today. So first of all, thank you for your service, for being in this space. My first question as a follow-up to that is, it's easy to talk about AI as a game changer. AI is changing a lot of things. It has, and it is 100%. One of the things I would argue that OpenAI really did change the game on, not just in developing LLMs, but in developing that user experience with AI. I would go so far as to claim that a lot of companies look to companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, Oracle for inspiration on, well, how do you build an interactive application or some application with AI? So my first question kind of out of the gate is, what are some of the takeaways? What are some of the lessons learned just in the past, however long you want to go back on user experience with generative AI, or even so far back as just classical machine learning and AI applications? What have we learned, and what do we still need to learn about user experience with
Absolutely, AI? And I think the experience is what made the technology popular this time. I think it was how a common man could just go and use this technology to its fullest potential without having to learn anything about it was the game changer. Just to get to chat with an AI system and get the right answers and get the effect that you really wanted was the pivotal point for all of us. And I think that's the learning experience, that how one transformative moment in people's lives can change their habits. Now people just expect out of it. I've been a conversational AI designer for longer than I really want to claim I was.
We'll cut this, don't worry.
I'm going to date myself. But there was a time when the industry was all about, hey, I need to talk to this system, and it seemed like some kind of an impediment to getting things done. Now it's almost like an expected enablement. If you do not offer users the power to talk to your systems, it's actually a disadvantage. It's actually, you're behind the game already.
Yeah.
So I think bringing that power of being able to use this technology at will, at ease, by everybody, and making it accessible to everyone, I think that's been the game changer for us in the last 18 months or so, and that's been the learning experience that we want to carry on.
Okay, so would you say, I 100% agree. I think that the adoption of AI by both technical and non-technical people alike has rapidly just exploded. Right. And again, I think you're right. The expectation of some kind of a conversational aspect with, frankly, any system, let alone an AI system. Maybe AI is powering those conversational systems, but I would even go so far as to say that most modern applications today, even if they are not themselves an AI-driven product, users are expecting some kind of AI-driven conversational interface with that product. Is that something that you would say is true? Not enough evidence there? Like, is that true?
Absolutely true. And I'm probably going to be provoking a lot of people over here, but I actually go a little further and I say, if your application is not conversation ready, you're already behind.
Really? Okay.
Because the next generation, look at them. How do they how do they communicate with you? How do teenagers communicate with their parents? They text them. How do they communicate with their friends? They text them. How do they communicate with these apps where they're posting their content? How do they react to suggestions from these applications? It's all about on demand, through text, through conversational natural language, and really accepting what AI has to offer to them. They are far more adoptive in this technology, and we are building this this technology for that generation. Our generation is building it up for them, and I think they're going to have a different kind of a mental model. It's one of the trends I think that the industry needs to observe.
Is conversational interfaces?
Conversational interfaces, as it is getting adopted by the next generation who are going to come into the workforce next.
Mm-hmm. So there are many pros I can see to why we would want to adopt conversational interfaces. Not only is the next generation primed and ready for that innovation, I have to imagine there are some maybe limitations, drawbacks, hurdles. What have been some of the obstacles in adoption widely in this conversational AI? It could range anything, I assume, from access to LLMs, although I can see that as not being so much of an issue anymore, all the way to just how do you designing that system? What are some of the obstacles that people are facing in adopting this new mode of conversation in their apps?
I would just take it one step higher on that. I wouldn't say that the adoption or the challenges lie in the conversational interface space. What I would say is that it is generally like when you start training models, accuracy has been an issue of models when you try to go and upscale them. Accuracy has been tremendously good, and you get very high levels of accuracy in your model when your scope is small, when your scope is limited to a certain vertical, a certain agent, and it is limited in a way that what it can do. The moment you widen your scope, accuracy takes a hit. And I think that has been a challenge for large scale adoption of any of these services. And part of it is, if you're not going to be accurate, a conversation needs to carry on with this trust building between the system and the human. And if the human starts to feel like it cannot trust the system anymore, conversations fail. It's the same thing with human to human. If I start talking to another friend and I just feel like this friend is lying in my face, I'm going to stop talking to that friend. So it's something like that. I think taking the human to human interaction tenets into the system space, I think is the key to really capitalizing on what we really need to do.
You hit on 2 points that I think are really both juxtaposed and work so harmoniously at the same time: accuracy and trust. I think this is something that a lot of companies wrangle with for any AI system, but especially for conversational systems. As someone who's built myself conversational systems mostly for customer support and sales in the past, one of the tenets that I would always tell my own team when designing these systems is, if our AI ever is unsure, stop. Not only stop, tell the user that I can't help you as the AI. And I think that that's going to be maybe juxtaposed with some people's idea of like, no, the AI has to try, has to attempt, and even if it fails, it has to go ahead and attempt this for the user. I think there's a push and pull there, because the striving for accuracy, the ability to, well, it did the thing I asked it to do, it did it succinctly, it did it efficiently, but what if it, along the way, breaks or something happens? What happens now? What do you tell the user? Mm-hmm. And that's where the trust comes in, I think. Absolutely. I think the idea of saying, I can't do this, is a hit on accuracy, but at the same time, it's a really big boost in trust.
Absolutely.
My question then is this: A, do you agree? And B, how do you see those two things working together at an organization? What advice, I guess, would you give to an organization thinking about both accuracy of their AI system and building trust with their users using that AI system?
Totally. I'll just take a step back, and I'm reminded of a certain tenet that I used to believe in at some point of time. To avoid dark design as a conversational designer early in my career, I was taught that you really need to play by some rules. One of the rules was we would never ever show a prompt to a user that was not written by a human, and we're way past that point. So I think to really accept the fact that we are dealing with generative content right now puts that pressure back on us to really take these rules seriously now. To your point, what we really need to do is people realize that these are systems that they're talking to. They're no longer talking to human created, human generated content. And the way you have to continue to build trust is you have to show the vulnerabilities. I think vulnerability exposition is something that builds trust in humans. If I go and talk to you and I say, you know what, I really do not know the answer to that, it just puts your mind at rest and says, you know, if he doesn't know the answer to something, he's going to say that. And I think that itself is a very reassuring fact for a user. A user's expectations and mental model cannot be one of superhuman or computative expectations. And I think I agree with you 100% that somewhere the vulnerability of this system needs to be talked about. And even if it's within an application, it's fine. And to have those guardrails is our job right now. I used to be a conversational designer, and I think my job's transformed into a conversation manager, and to make sure that a user is not disappointed in generative content at the same time.
So I agree with everything. So far, so good, right? Even to put some, lower level machine learning terms on it, a lot of machine learning teams might attach words like precision and recall to their systems.
Right.
Precision meaning when the AI does something, can you trust it? And recall being more along the lines of, is it able to tackle everything that it's seeing? No, but what percentage is it able to tackle what it's receiving? The way I've always thought about the push and pull between those two is if you optimize for precision, meaning when your AI speaks, it's speaking confidently.
Right.
And as long as you are warehousing, saving all of the times where it doesn't answer that question or does that thing for them, and to your point, correctly tells the user, hey, I can't do that, hey, I'm being vulnerable here. That loop between, well, now the machine learning team has a goal. Now they can quantify what the AI can't do or can't do well, and you have the data hopefully in your database to say, here is the training data that we might be able to use to enhance our recall while not taking a hit on precision. I'm throwing out a lot of terms here, but the basic idea is that put your AI out there and make it trustworthy. And wherever it can't do, have loops in place to train that AI system to make it better. Is that a paradigm that you generally recommend to people, or what else?
Yeah. So let me just go back. I think we used to live in a world of natural language understanding where precision recall was a pull and a push. You increase precision, you're probably getting a hit on recall, and you push recall, you get a hit precision. Right now with generative AI, I actually think there's a possibility to actually tank them both at the same time. You could go low on accuracy and you could go low on your coverage of answers at the same time. That's just how you sometimes fail to implement it. So just going back to the point that you're trying to make, which is if you are going to create a system that is metrics based, you have to have learning with a human in the loop ready right now, because you really cannot have a machine train a machine. And we have that in the loop all the time. So right now we are looking at the answers that a system is generating and using in a conversational AI system. We're scoring them using whatever scoring mechanism, cosine similarity score or BLEU or whatever that may be. But we are bringing a human in the loop to first create a golden referential answer to each of those questions and make sure that there is true parity in accuracy as well as coverage. If there's an expected response from the system by the human, we want to make sure that the human to human piece actually reflects that, and the machine is able to replicate that in the future cycles. So human in the loop learning is absolutely essential at this stage. Maybe in 5 years we'll depend less so because we will have trained the model so much better on something, but right now it's absolutely essential.
And I would say to your point about the future, in 5 years, if we are less reliant on that human in the loop training, I would argue it's that because we paid so much, because we listened to you today, and we're paying so much attention to human in the loop training today.
Absolutely.
Is that fair?
Absolutely.
If we don't pay attention to that today, it may not be 5 years from now.
Exactly.
It may be 10 years, 20 years from now. We have to not rely as much on humans.
Exactly.
You're saying humans in the loop are almost a requirement right now, especially for conversational design.
Totally.
Does that
totally
makes sense? Because even when you having managed conversations with both humans and AI before, I think we can both tell our audience here that even if you write a golden, ground truth, this is a great response to this question, you will be surprised by a person who has another answer and says, oh, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Let's add that to the ground truth. And I think that iterative process right now is best done by humans because they're the ones with the context. They're the ones with the mental capacity to say, ooh, I never thought of it that way, but it works and it's on brand, or whatever you care about.
On point, yeah. I think humans still are capable of making connections which are still, I think, a little dreamlike for systems, even for AI.
Mm-hmm. All right, so last question, kind of tie all this up with a bow. If you were, let's say I'm thinking about integrating a conversational AI interface into my platform, and my platform is itself not an AI platform, what are the number 1, 2, 3 things? What are the gotchas? What am I not thinking of that you want me to be thinking of while designing the system? I'm going to assume one is put humans in the loop, but
of course. That's a very tactical thing, but I think there's a landscape of strategic and tactical things at the same time. I think it is first and foremost the part that we already touched, which is trust. Every opportunity that you can really avail of right now to build trust is what you need to start thinking of. And every guardrail that you can put against losing or eroding trust is what you need to think of to start with. The second thing I would definitely say is that mimic what human-to-human interactions should be around that topic. And I think that's where the transformative change that has happened. We could get away with a system-to-human kind of an interaction about 5 years ago, but right now with generative AI, it almost feels like people expect a different answer from the system every time they ask a question, even ever so slightly differently. I think that itself puts a lot of pressure back on the system to seem like it's useful. So a system that just repeats an answer over and over again sometimes actually is not what the user is expecting. I think it's meeting the user's expectations on those 1 or 2 things are the first few gotchas that people are not really aware of. People are still designing these systems to just use whatever content comes through, without really having any kind of a sieve or a guardrail against it. And I think that is the important thing that one needs to start building with, instead of thinking about guardrails as an after thought of an application.
So think about designing the system as if it were a human-to-human interaction and transfer those rules to your system-to-human interaction. And then with that, always be thinking about guardrails and always be thinking about where humans can add value along the way.
Absolutely.
Samrat Baul, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
Yes, and enjoy the rest of the event.
I will. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.